I'm waiting for the little circle to spin. Hello. So today I'm going to try to talk about this idea of privilege and dealing with the cards that you were dealt. Now, I'm not going to pretend like I have this all figured out. I don't. But I've lived enough life, paid enough attention, been in enough conversations, and gotten a little frustrated enough that I feel like it's worth making the attempt. So, in this conversation, I'm going to try to present a little bit of a historic arc using my personal history to understand this concept of privilege. And then I'm going to talk a little bit more about some of the ideas like picking yourself up by your bootstraps and other things that get caught in the way of us having a productive conversation on this subject. This is my first time doing a Facebook live stream on my computer, so I can't see my full face or everything. So I might be looking all over the place, but I am talking to you, whoever you are who is up here. So, anyway, let's start with a little bit of background. So, I know that from having a lot of conversations with people across the spectrum on some of the challenges that are facing our society right now, there is this false dichotomy, this either or situation that we found ourselves in for a long time. So if somebody says something from some point of view, then the other person feels like they automatically have to fight them from the other side. And I don't know if everyone's playing the devil's advocate or what, but I'm going to try to present this in what I think to be a somewhat logical way, somewhat neutral way, given my perspective. Other people may disagree. So, just to give you a little background, one of the reasons why I feel like I have some responsibility to have these conversations and to participate is because of the complexity of my own background. Just the fact that my name is Pedro and I'm black brings enough confusion to some people that it could take forever to get into. Some of the other complexities are when my mom and dad split when I was two, when they got divorced. My dad married a white woman. And when my dad married a white woman, I got introduced to this other um, realm, let's say, of the way that people navigate space and race. And so I feel like, given my background with my family in the Nation of Islam and being in the military and all these things, I feel like I have some degree of of just background to be able to have these kind of conversations. So that's what I'm doing. Now I'm gonna tell you a couple stories. And the reason why I'm telling stories is because I think it's important for my friends who consider themselves white to hear, because I know that there's sometimes where people feel they don't consciously think it. I don't think, um, but sometimes they make different considerations for people based on how they feel about the person personally, but they may ignore some of the things systemically. And I feel like I have some responsibility for sharing some of my own history so that people can understand. At least if they have a compassion for me, they may dig a little bit more deeply. So I'm going to share a couple stories. One of them is when I was in the third grade, and I was doing a little cursive test, and I had to write the word football a whole bunch of times. So I wrote football, 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 right? Not very important. What was important is that when my third grade teacher checked my paper, she put an X on it. And I didn't understand why I got the X on the paper, because it was just writing football a whole bunch of times. And then I asked her, why did I get an X on my paper? And she was upset with me, and she said, you know why? And she kind of was accusatory. And she was a white woman teaching in a mostly black school. And she was really accusatory. And she said, I'm ashamed of you. I'm embarrassed. I thought that you would, not do this. And I didn't know what this was. And I was like, what do you mean? And I was like, I don't know what I did. I just wrote football a bunch of times. And she was just like, didn't want to engage me. So then I'm looking at my paper trying to figure out what I did wrong. And then I saw that there was one time that I spelled football with only one O. So it spelled flatball. Stupid, right? But my teacher thought I did it on purpose. And so all of a sudden, whatever energy she had invested in me as a student got lost. And it was a mistake, but she took it personally. Now you might think whatever you think about that. So I'm going to give you a more explicit example. So, because my mom and my grandmother were teachers, I spoke what was called proper English. And so, because of proper English, sometimes people were more receptive to me than they were the people, other black kids who might have spoken differently, speaking how we speak in the neighborhood. So I ended up, because of my family background, I was able to read kind of early and articulate myself pretty well. So I got put into an advanced reading class. So I get into this advanced reading class, and I had to write a little short story. And this is my first year in this new school, which is a little bit more integrated, like 50-50. And I had been in a school that was mostly black. So I get there, and I could tell that the reading teacher just had some kind of thing toward me, but I just tried to ignore it because I'd been around enough that I knew there was probably something up. At any rate, I write this story, and the story is straight from my imagination. Is based off of some friends from my older school that I come here from. I turned it to the teacher. I showed it to some of my friends, and they're like, "Man, that's a great story, Pedro." I get my grade back from my teacher, and it's a C. And then I asked her, I said, "How come I got a C?" And she said, "Because you cheated." I told her I didn't cheat. And she said, "You must have cheated based on nothing." So I said, "Well, why do you think I cheated?" And she was like, "Because you didn't write the story." I said, "I did write the story." And I tried to explain to her she didn't want to have any parts of it. And then obviously that hurt me. And I was like, "I wrote this," and she wasn't listening. And she said, "You're lucky I'm not giving you an F, and I'm giving you a C because I can't prove that you cheated. But I know that you did, based solely on nothing. From my perspective, just because I was black, she felt like I didn't belong in the classroom because in the accelerated class, all the other kids were white. And she just decided that I must have cheated, and no reason, no reason. So it was very discouraging. But the type of brain I have, what I decided, I was like, okay, I could be, angry, try to fight for myself or whatever in some kind of way. But what I decided to do is I'm gonna keep doing my best in my particular situation. I'm gonna keep doing my best. I'm gonna keep writing. And at first, I was going to just stop writing. I felt discouraged that I didn't want to write anymore. But I decided that I wasn't even going to participate in the system the way that it was laid out. I decided that if I saw a C on the paper, that it was my A, and that I would take my own A credit for myself, regardless of what my teacher graded me. Now, some people could say, well, everybody should be able to do that, or whatever stupid thing that they might say. But that's not the case because you never know what people are going through and what they're carrying. And little burdens like that are a lot. And for some people, it's devastating. It can make it so that they don't want to participate at all. And there's a lot more historical things I could bring up to talk about that, but I'm not going to. What I'm going to do instead is I'm going to give you an example. So let's say that you're playing Uno, and I'm going to use Uno, and I actually have some Uno cards here, to express this system of privilege and dealing with the cards that you're dealt. Now, my dad, when I was in my 20s, my dad invited me to come see him. I didn't know why. He said he needed to talk to me. And we had a conversation, and he told me a bunch of stuff about myself, misconceptions that he had about me because of the way I engage the world. And one of the things he said to me, though, was he said, all my life, all your life, Pedro, I thought you were the weakest out of all of my children, but now I'm starting to question that. And he said to me, when you were born, you had me and your mom and everything, and you were dealt somewhat decent cards. But then you and your mom got divorced, or me and your mom got divorced, and your cards got messed up, but you kept on playing. Then you were not doing very well, financially in the situation that we were in. So my cards were worse. But he said, but you kept playing. And at first I thought you were stupid. But now I realize that you are just doing your own thing. And that hit me in a certain way about how systems are set up. So let's say that there's a machine, and the machine deals out cards to everybody when they go to play this game. And a long time ago, the way the system was set up, the cards, certain people got all the good cards. When you ever play Uno and you see these cards, you're like, oh yeah, you get excited because that's your hand. But it's like the luck of the draw. And you're like, yes, excited, man, I got all these cards. I'm about to crush this game. And the new Uno, you can even write your own rules on the card. So say you get this kind of hand. And you're like, all right, I'm awesome. You play again, you get this hand. It's all reverses. It's not anything special, but at least you know that if something comes at you, you can change it a little bit. You can reverse your course, whatever. say you're playing in that game and somebody comes and you know they might try to get you out of the game, but you got the skip card, so you can skip and you can skip that person and continue to play. And then you got the draw twos where you can add cards to the other person's hand and maybe help your chances of winning. And then you got the number cards. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Nothing exciting. You got to play real strategically to be able to win with this hand. And it's very difficult. And then you have the rest of the deck. And somewhere in here, there's probably some cards that may change your chances of winning. Maybe you luck out and you get a draw four or skip or whatever the case may be. But in this deck, most of them are just number cards and cards with certain colors, maybe a couple draw one, draw twos or something in there. So to me, that's kind of like explains the system to some degree. Some people, it's not their fault from their perspective because they didn't really create the system. So that from their perspective, they're like, hey, I didn't make it this way. All I know is when I went to play the game, I got a bunch of cards and I'm playing to win it. The other person, everybody's playing to win it, but the cards that they have some factor in how they play to win. And some people will say, well, look, man, you can't blame me for the cards I was dealt. And that's true. We can't blame you for the cards dealt. If you jump into the game and you have those cards already, then you're just going to play and say, hey, look, that's how it is. I won. I wasn't trying to cheat you. I didn't set it up, whatever the case may be. But the way that the system was set up is that some people, not only do they just get the number cards, sometimes they get more cards. Like in this typical game, in all these other hands where they have the somewhat lucky cards, they all got 7 cards. But in this one, all numbers, 0 through 9, so they got 10 cards. They have more cards, less things in their favor in this deck. So they got to really, really play hard. So I decided when I was younger, I said, you know what? I know this game is jacked up. And I also know that if I say this game is jacked up, they're just going to ignore me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play my hand the best way I can. I'm going to play my hand the best way I can. And I also know that because the people, whether they want to admit it or not, they know that I have my hand machine dealt me way more cards that seemingly have less value. They probably aren't going to pay attention to me as much. They're going to see most of their competition as the people who can draw 2 on them or reverse or skip or whatever the case may be. So I'm gonna just keep playing the best I can, getting rid of the cards I can, trying to get to my winning hand or get to my Uno. And then if I get lucky, maybe I pull up, dang, that's lucky. I didn't even try that. I just pulled it up and it was like that. I might get a card like this where I can write my own rules. And then once I can do that, then I can, if I win, maybe I can do something about changing the game. But for people who say, hey, I didn't have anything to do with it, while that's true, you might not have anything to do with it. You can't say I didn't have anything to do with it and then consistently see that you got a hand like this and other people got a hand like this, or something like that, and not say and try to pretend like you don't know that there's a difference. And believe me, most people know there's a difference. I had people tell me straight up that they know, even though they act like they don't. And the people that's in the middle who say, well, I got a couple good cards, I got a couple skips, I don't want to mess it up because I want to win too. And it's those people in the middle, unfortunately sometimes, who end up getting played on the other side because they want to hold on to their little bit of cards. They don't want to get the whole deck mixed and reshuffled and take their chances along with everybody else, that everyone has a fair chance at playing the game, winning or losing or whatever the case may be. They want to keep their good hand. And everyone who plays cards knows that. Everyone knows that if you know how to play the game somewhat decently, or maybe you don't know how to play at all, but you're protected by the hands you have. And if you lose when you got a hand like this, you feel like a super loser. So instead of just being like, when you do lose every once in a while, and I know this is kind of rambly, but even if you lose once and they hand out cards again and you get another thing like this, you have a chance of winning again. So basically, when with this example that I'm trying to offer to people is to just be honest. If you're playing the game and you don't want your hand to be shuffled in and mixed in with everybody else's, and everybody take their fair shake at the game. If you don't want to say, oh, there's a chance that if I redo this whole deck, if I say, you know what, this wasn't shuffled right, this was shuffled in such a way that I got a whole bunch of good cards and some other people got a whole cards. And yes, we're playing the game equally. We're equally playing the game, but we got completely different hands, and you know it. Don't pretend, or just say, hey, when I win, I'm gonna maybe support some other people, or I'm gonna be honest and say, hey, I love the hand I have. I don't want to have your hand because if I see your hand, I don't think I'm gonna win with your hand, or at least it's gonna be a lot harder to win with your hand. You don't even. I didn't even say anything about any particular, except for telling my own story, which obviously my skin tells you where I come from. Other than that, I don't think I even have to say anything about, actual particular people. It's just how it is. If you're in any system, so I invite you, if you're next time you play a game, a card game, and you look at your hand and you say, "Ooh, I have a great hand," and you get excited, and you know by the number of good cards you have that somebody else probably has not as good cards. Yes, you might win the game. Yes, you might not cheat. Yes, you might, do your best and just win. And hey, luck of the draw. But if it keeps happening over and over and over again, and somebody else consistently is getting this hand, then it's something to be paid attention to. And I guess the last thing I'll say about it in this extensive rambly video is that please, if you are playing this game and every once in a while somebody gets a lucky card like this, don't try to make that person special and say, hey, look, that person got a draw card. They got one of the lucky cards. That proves that the game is not rigged. It doesn't prove anything. It proves that somebody played the game, they stuck with it long enough, probably weren't getting paid attention to, picked up a couple good cards, and maybe they won. But if they lose everything and try to start over again, chances are they won't win again. So if you know that, just be honest. Last story I'll tell, and I'll be done with this, is one of my friends, she was a white woman, she still is a white woman, and she graduated school, and I was talking to her, and she was stressed out, and I said, what are you stressed out about? And she's like, well, I just got my degree and stuff like that, but I don't think I'm gonna find a job, and blah, 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 blah. And then I started laughing, and she said, why are you laughing? And then I said, okay, you just graduated with a pretty good degree from a pretty good university, and you're a white woman. And obviously, the white women have their tough time too. I'm not saying they don't, but I was like, do you really think that you're not gonna find a job at all? And I was like, I'm about to go look for a job too. Which one of you, between me and you, who do you think is gonna have an easier time finding a job? And you know what she said? You're right. She didn't even front. She was like, you're right. I don't even know why I'm tripping. I'm gonna be getting me a job pretty quickly. I'm lucky. And she was honest, and I respect that. So I know this might have not been the most coherent message, but I think you got my point. If my lack of coherency made it difficult for you to get my point, it's probably because you didn't want to get it in the first place, and that's totally cool because you can do what you want to do. And I think that's it for now. And it took me 4 weeks to make this video, and I was gonna write it all out and try to be polished, but you know what? No need for polishedness because we're living this. So hopefully you got something out of it. Talk to you later.